Hey guys, Dr. Brandon Crawford here. I'm the founder of the Austin Center for Developing Minds. We are located just north of Austin, Texas in Cedar Park. And what we do is we focus on developmental functional neurology. Hopefully you'll have a chance to catch my lecture because I'm going to be taking you through what that process looks like and why it's so important to focus on rehabbing the brain in the right way, at the right time, with the right frequency and oscillations and all this kind of stuff, right? So I'm very honored to be a part of this conference. This conference is very meaningful. I love all the people involved, and obviously the cause is fantastic. So thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Due to advances in technology and bioscience, the most efficient ways emerging to treat pain and injury revolve around the nervous system. Using the human body's amazing ability called neuroplasticity, it is now possible to activate increased strength, pain-free movement, and faster healing. This is the Newbie device, a patented electrical stimulation device used for neuromuscular re-education. While conventional treatments for pain and injury only manage symptoms, the Newbie device allows you to work at the source of the problem. Using this approach, 90% of individuals notice meaningful progress in the very first session, and evidence is showing those early results also lead to faster overall recovery from most injuries and surgeries. There's finally help for people having difficulty recovering from injury, living with chronic pain, or experiencing challenging neurological conditions. Ask your doctor or therapist about the Newbie from NewFit, accessing the power of the nervous system to improve outcomes.
Hi, I'm Stacey Gesinger, licensed marriage and family therapist, and my topic today is disruption and dysregulation. And I'm a therapist here in Austin, and I work with a lot of families from Team Luke Hope for Minds, and with the families, I help them out with areas of disruption and dysregulation with their kiddos. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today. And first, just let you know kind of where this is coming from. It's coming from something called trust-based relational intervention, TBRI for short. And it's something I'm a practitioner of, and it's something that was created for kids who come from trauma backgrounds or hard backgrounds, things like kids from foster care or maybe who've been adopted or who have medical trauma. And it's to help the parents help these kiddos whose brain maybe has some strong issues. And so I'll be pulling from TBRI a lot in today's talk, just to let you know that. And then first, I just kind of want to also define what is dysregulation, because it might be not a term that we all use and are familiar with. But dysregulation, when we think about it, we think about just sort of exaggerated or extreme behaviors or emotions that we're seeing in our kids. And it feels very disorganized when we're seeing it happen. And we know kind of something's not right with our kiddo. They're not acting like themselves. Again, it's sort of exaggerated and extreme. And what's happening is their brain is going into that fight, flight, or freeze place. And so often with our kids, it looks a lot like fighting. Maybe they'll be hitting or lashing out or thrashing. Maybe they start tantruming or screaming or just are real fidgety. And this can be from our kiddos from 2 to 32. It doesn't matter how old your kid is, your child is that you're caring for. We can see that in all ages. And so, and I realize y'all have a wide range of kids' ages and abilities. And so my hope is today in this talk to be relevant to all of you, whether you're, like I said, whether your kid is 2 or 32, whether your child is mobile, immobile, in a wheelchair, maybe completely bedridden. There are still things that you can use from this that will help any kiddo. So you might just have to tailor it a little bit. I'll hope to give you some ways that you can tailor it to your kiddo's abilities. So one of the things I want to talk about before we get into some of the practical tools is what's going on when your child is dysregulated. And what is going on is maybe not what we would first think of, but it is fear. And so for the brain that has been traumatized, there is, it's constantly scanning for danger, and it is easily triggered into fear mode. And so what may seem or look like this is just manipulation or this is just a tantrum, actually what's happening is the brain is going into fear mode, and the brain is telling your kid that if I don't get this thing, or if what I'm thinking doesn't happen, I may die. Now, you as the parent know this is not true. You know your child is safe and they're okay and they don't need that chocolate bar, or it's okay to move from here to there. But to their brain, for whatever reason, it goes into that fear mode. And so as parents, when we can recognize that and see and know that, okay, this isn't just them having a tantrum, or this isn't just them trying to manipulate me, they're in a real fear state. And so our job as their parent is we can help them feel safe. And so in TBR, we call this felt safety. We want our kiddos to feel safe. And the interesting thing is often we miss this piece because we know we can look in the environment and see, they're safe, they're fine. There's no reason for them to be reacting like this. But to them, like I said, for whatever reason, that brain might get offline a bit and they don't feel safe. And so our job is to help them do the thing that is going to help them feel safe. Again, not just the knowledge, but actual felt safety. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk today about how we can do that, how we can help our kiddos feel safe. And part of that is us connecting with them and being very connected with our kiddos, because when we're connected, we're at a place of non-anxiousness. So one of the things we're going to talk about first, then, how do we do this, is you got to take care of you as the parent. It's really, really important that you are taking care of yourself and that you are in a place of, one, calmness. So when your kiddo is disrupted or dysregulated, for you to be calm and non-anxious in that moment is really, really important. It's really, really hard, but it's really, really important. And so one of the ways that you can work at being calm in those moments is developing a mindfulness practice. And mindfulness is not something that takes a ton of time, because I know you do not have a ton of time. And I know you don't have a lot of alone time, but these are the things I'm going to give you are things that you can do wherever you're at. And you only have to spend a little bit of time doing it. And you can even do it when somebody's around. So one of the ways to be mindful is just to breathe. We want to take deep, slow, deep breaths. And the thing about deep breathing is we need to do it and practice it when things are calm and okay, or calmish and okay-ish. I realize, you may be dealing or living in an environment that constantly feels chaotic, but there tends to be kind of calmer times. And so those are the times that we want to practice breathing. And it's a great thing to do with your kiddo with a traumatic brain injury, and it's a great thing to do with your whole family. And so by practicing breathing, what we do is we give our body the ability to develop muscle memory, so that when things get a little bit crazy or a little bit more chaotic or anxious or fearful, then our body can remember how to breathe. And we don't have to have the conscious memory, but our body can remember it. So I want to just talk to you a little bit about breathing, because it's so important. And so one of the things, and you can go online and find all kinds of great, exercises on breathing, but I just want to kind of talk you through it and lead you through one exercise that I like for deep breathing. And so what you need to do is get yourself in a comfortable place. And you can do this, though, in an uncomfortable place. If you're just at a place where you can't sit down or what have you, that's okay. But if right now you're able to be in a comfortable place, get yourself in a comfortable place. And then I want you to think about breathing through your nose in and out, if you're able, if you don't have allergies. We do, at least we're in Austin here, and we have terrible allergies. So you may not be able to breathe through your nose, but if you can, breathe through your nose and then allow it to hit the back of your throat. And so you're going to make that exaggerated sound, kind of like Darth Vader, the sound. I don't know if you can hear that, but so you're going to make that exaggerated sound. You're going to have it travel past your chest all the way down to your diaphragm, and you're going to expand your belly like a balloon. So when you breathe in, you want the air to expand your belly, not just your chest, but your belly. And then when you exhale, you want it to deflate. And so we're going to think about all those things as we're breathing. And then, so one kind of fun way to breathe is to plug one nostril and breathe in through that side, and then pause for a second or two. And then as long and slow as you can, plug the other nostril and breathe out and exhale through that other nostril. And then breathe in through that one, pause, breathe out through the other one. And the thing that this does is not only give you a good deep breathing exercise, but it also helps different parts of your brain be activated because you're using movement and you're using different hands. And so we have to use different sides of our brain when we use a different hand. And so this is one way to sort of integrate the whole brain, because when we're anxious, our whole brain is not connecting and working together. We're really operating from that, what we call the reptilian brain, and it's at the base of our brain. And it's not the executive functioning part. And so when we do something like this, we can get our executive functioning part of our brain online better. So it's a simple way to do that. So this is something you can do for yourself, but it's also something you can do with your kiddos. And if your kiddo doesn't have movement of their hands, that's okay. They don't have to plug a nostril. You could even plug one nostril. Obviously, explain what you're going to do beforehand, because it might feel scary if you just come up and plug your kiddo's nose. But explain to them what you're doing, and you could plug one nose. You'd say, and if they like that, then do it. If they don't, obviously don't do that. But so it's something that, if they can't tolerate, just have them breathe in and out regularly through their nose. But like I said, kids of all different kinds of abilities can do that, and you can do it with them. And so it's a great way for you all to practice. So you have that ability to take a deep breath when you need it. Okay, so you're gonna work at just simple moments like that to get yourself into a mindful place so that you can get yourself calm. The other thing that's really important is for you to be aware of what you bring to the situation. So when your kiddo is upset, what are you bringing into the room with you? How were you parented, as a kid growing up? Were you punished a lot? And is your first reaction maybe to spank or use punitive measures, which we'll talk about more later, but can be really re-traumatizing for the child who's had a traumatic brain injury. So in TBRI, we never ever use punitive measures, and we don't even say the word discipline really, because we call it correcting. We teach them how to do it differently. But we find that when we use punitive measures, it just puts the brain in even more fear mode. And so it's really not helpful, especially if your kiddo has come from a place where maybe they got their brain injury through violence or physical trauma. And so, obviously it was some sort of physical trauma. And so to do that as a discipline measure can be really, really traumatizing for the kiddo and get them to a worse place. Plus it breaks your connection with them. And so we want to think about how can we get and establish a really strong connection. So be aware of what you bring. And maybe you were parented in a very different way, and this might feel like a completely weird and different way to parent, and that's okay. And you can kind of work through some of that on your own. Maybe you'll want to see a therapist to kind of work through some of that. And then also to check in, do you have your own fear coming up? Because often when our children get to a place of anxiety, it provokes a lot of anxiety in us. And so if you're feeling anxious, your child's going to feed off of that. And so to be really careful about, okay, am I having fear come up? What do I need to do to take care of my own fears around this? Maybe for me, when my kiddo gets upset like this, I go to a place of thinking about the trauma or the accident and what happened. And I go to a really dark place of thinking, why we shouldn't even have to be here and all of that stuff. And so for you to be aware of what are the messages and the stories you're telling yourself when your kiddo is upset, and for you to take care of yourself in that and realize maybe I need to take care of some of the pain that's there for me as well. So knowing what you bring to the situation is also really big. So those are kind of your roles in it, and some things I want you guys to maybe work on a little bit for yourselves. And like I said, even if it's just taking a few moments where you can take a deep breath, exercise is also really huge. Any exercise you can get for yourself. I know you don't have a lot of time, but that's a great way to release stress and tension. And if your kiddo is able to do some movement, it'd be great to do it with your kiddo, because that's a great way to relieve stress and tension. So, okay, so I want to show you a slide now, and I'm going to try my best to pull it up and screen share with you. Let's see how this works. Okay. So hopefully this is working. If not, I can send you all the, if you want the slides for it later, I can get you the slides. So one thing we're going to talk about now, it's called engagement. And again, it's from the TBRI. And so when when we think about how do we help our kiddos feel safe, hold on just a minute. I think the slides are not up. Oh, well, I think I need to push this button. Let's see here. Let's see if that did it, maybe. Hopefully that did it. Okay. So when we think about how we want our kids to be able to regulate and calm their central nervous system down, if we think kind of backwards to let's prevent it rather than having to fix it, right? And so engagement is one way to do that, because the more engaged our kiddos are with us, whether you're the parent or the caregiver or what have you, the more engaged you are, the more able you're going to be to calm your kiddo down just by your, like I said, deep breathing or your calm, non-anxious presence. And they're going to be less triggered. They're going to have less fear response when they feel engaged. So, I mean, you can probably think about relationships that you have, and the more connected you feel, the less anxiety you have around that person because you're connected with them. So it's the same for our kiddos. So some of the ways we like to encourage you to engage with your kiddos and create connection is one, through touch. And you know your kiddo best and what they can tolerate. And some kiddos can't, in the beginning, tolerate much touch, and that's okay. You can do symbolic touch, like maybe if you want them to look in your eyes, you can just put your hand near their chin. You don't have to actually touch their chin, but if they can handle it, you could just gently touch your chin and say, I want to see those beautiful eyes. Maybe you put a hand on their shoulder, maybe you put a hand on their hand. Eye contact is also really big, because eye contact actually changes brain chemistry and it creates this amazing connection. And so maybe you say, something like, I love seeing your eyes, or are your eyes purple? And so that they're like, no, and you're being playful and you're trying to engage with them. And always, always watch your voice quality. So when your kiddo gets dysregulated, you're probably likely to start talking really fast, and maybe you're getting very loud, and your tone and your voice quality gets way off, and it creates more stress and tension. And so you want to be a very calm, non-anxious presence for your kiddo. And so you make sure that your face is soft, and that your voice is soft, and that your words are kind. And even just doing that can do a lot to bring down some anxiety and bring down some stress. Behavior matching is another engagement strategy. And it's just simply doing what your kiddo's doing, sitting the same way they are. Maybe they're laying down. Maybe you just lay down next to them and you have the same head movement as them. Choose, if you're playing a game with them and they have that ability, maybe you're choosing the exact same color block they do, or just mimicking them. Our brains have very strong mirror neurons, and meaning we naturally mimic what we see somebody doing. So often you'll come into a room and you'll see two people sitting across from each other, sitting the exact same way. It's just this crazy, funny thing that happens in our brains that we like to mirror what we see happening. And so it feels really good when a kiddo sees their parent matching them. It feels like connection for them. And then always, always be playful. I think especially when we're talking about, being in a home where a kid has had a traumatic brain injury, it can feel very serious and very heavy a lot of the times. And so playfulness is so, so important to relieve some of that tension. And it's good for everybody. It's good for your kiddo. It's good for you. And so don't forget to be playful. And again, at whatever ability your kiddo is able, if your kid can engage, great. If your kid can't, then you just be playful, and you do things and be playful in a way so that they can watch you be playful. Never be afraid to be silly. Using imaginative play is really, really important, especially for the traumatized brain, because we're wanting to fire different neurons, right, in the brain. We're wanting to wake things up. So by using imagination, we can fire up different neurons and amazing things in the brain that can change our brain. And so play is a huge, huge way to do that. And kids, one of the interesting things is kids from trauma backgrounds, like who grew up in, let's say, foster care, we often don't see them being able to play at all. And that's why we see a lot of trouble for these kiddos later on, a lot of issues of attachment problems and just even learning disabilities because they have never had the ability to play and have imaginative play. It fires up crazy stuff in the brain. And so don't underestimate the importance of just playing and you being playful. And play disarms fear. Joy and fear cannot coexist at the same time. And so when we get playful, it helps our kiddo calm down and not be in that place of fear. So that is those are some engagement strategies. I'm going to close this screen and we're going to move to another screen, and I'm going to keep sharing with you. Hopefully this is working. This is called the ideal response. And this one is how we want to respond when we're correcting. So I think I told you earlier, we don't use the term discipline, but this is how we replace discipline, and we call it correcting. And so when you're maybe a lot of times what I see with kiddos with traumatic brain injury is just extreme tantrums and things like arms flailing and maybe even punching and hitting a caregiver, which can feel so heartbreaking when you're the mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or whoever, aunt, uncle, that's been caring for this person and working so hard, and then they haul off and punch you. And so one thing is to remember that it's not because of you, it's because of fear. It's because there's some fear response going on within them. So, but we don't want to allow that naughty behavior, right? It's still, even though it's a fear response, it's still not okay to hit mom or whoever. And so we're going to teach them how not to do that, but we're not going to do it by hitting back or putting them in timeout, because timeout can really, again, send a kiddo into fear response. We call it time in, and we sit with our kiddos who are in this fear place, and we wait it out. And sometimes we have to wait it out a long, long time, guys. Sometimes it takes a long time, but it's worth it, because if you wait until your kiddo is calm, you're going to see that these extreme behaviors get less and less, and the time it takes for them to calm down is going to get less and less. So in the beginning, it might take a really long time for some of these strategies to work, but trust me, you're going to see the time it takes get shorter and shorter, and you're going to see a different kiddo. So the ideal response stands for immediate, direct, efficient, action-based, and leveled at the behavior, not the child. So we want to try and respond immediately within 3 seconds if possible, because that's when learning occurs best, and that's when we can associate what's happening with what we want to happen. And so, especially for the traumatized brain, waiting too much longer, it's not really going to connect for the child. And we want to be direct in how we approach them and what we're talking about what's going on. And we also want to look directly in their eyes. So direct is actually a lot about really looking in their eyes and letting them know with your soft, kind eyes that you love and care for them. And then efficient is we don't want to overblow things. Often, I know I do this myself, I will go to a level 10 when it's really a level 1 or 2 offense. And so we don't need to go to level 10. We stay at level 2 and say, oh, shoot, is that how we do that? Right? And we can be playful and try and turn the behavior around. If being playful doesn't work and it doesn't turn the behavior around, then we can go to the next level, which is like a stronger tone to our voice. The playfulness goes away, but we're still kind and we're still not yelling. And then action-based is one of my favorite things to do with kids. And this works with all kids. It's great. It works for us as adults too, is the redo. And that is, we have our kiddo redo it the right way. So let's say little Johnny wants an apple, or not an apple, you probably would give your kid an apple, a piece of chocolate. And you say, oh, sorry, little Johnny, you can't have chocolate right now. And then little Johnny hits you. And we say, oh, let's redo that. Is it okay to hit? No, it's not okay to hit. What would be a better way to do that, little Johnny? You would say, oh, I'm really frustrated. And then you might say, Mom, can I have an apple later? Or a chocolate later? And so then you have little Johnny actually say that, Mom, can I have a piece of chocolate later? And so having them redo it in the right way gives them the experience of not hitting and gives them the experience of how to do it in a better way, right? So their brain has that ability to actually know what it feels like to say and do it the right way. And if they hit you, actually we're not going to use words, right? What we're going to do is we're going to take their hand and say, oh, hands are for softness. And so we take their hand and show, see, instead of hitting, you can stroke mom's arm. And so we give them that experience of doing it that way. And then lastly, we want to level it at the behavior, not the child. So we never say, you're crazy, or you're a terrible child, or any of those things. We focus on the behavior of the child, and we don't think it's often more about the story we're saying about our kids. This kid is so terrible, and this is so hard, and all that, right? But no, this behavior that just happened was really hard for me, and we can work at changing this behavior. Okay, so I have one more last slide, and this one is on life value terms. And this is just some simple phrases that we want to use that teach social skills for our kids. And like I said, when we do this longer and longer, we can start using these life terms, and just these simple little phrases help our kiddo's brain switch gears and go, oh, okay, I don't need to scream at mom. I can, with respect, ask for what I want. And so using these gentle, these simple little phrases, they're quick and they're short, and you come up with whatever phrase works for you. Gentle and kind is a great one. If your kiddo is hitting, we say, oh no, remember, we're gentle and kind, gentle and kind. And so when they start to flail, you just say gentle and kind, gentle and kind. After you've shown them, after they've had multiple redos, then you can just say those words, and they know, their brain can start to kick in. Oh yeah, I don't hit. I stroke my mom's arm instead. When I want something, instead of hitting her, I can stroke her arm to ask for what I want. And so you can see all those life value terms there. Again, you can come up with different ones that work around your house. But again, it's nice to have those little just short responses, because it helps you develop a way to talk with your kiddos, and then their brain can quickly go, oh, okay, I'm getting off track and I need to get back on track. All right, that's it for our slides. So I think I'm going to try to come back to just me. Let's see, hopefully that will work. So the next thing, I'm not sure if that is working. The next thing or kind of the last thing I want to leave you with, is just some of the practical helps. And so in that moment, when your child is really dysregulated and it is so disruptive, what are some practical things that you can do? And they look a lot like the things that we use to connect, that we talked with earlier, right? Ways that we connect and things we do before things are out of control. So a lot of times those same things work when they are out of control, especially if you've been practicing them with your kiddo and developing that muscle memory for you and your kiddo. But one of the things that we want to do for our kids is we want to make sure they have food and water every 2 hours. Unless for some reason your doctor says don't do this, please do check with your doctor about it, especially if your kiddo is on a special diet or maybe has a feeding tube or that sort of thing. So of course, check with your doctor about this. But generally speaking, we like to give our kids food and water every 2 hours, because it keeps their blood sugar at a steady state and helps their body be able to regulate better. So often when our kids are getting dysregulated, even if we just give a glass of water and some snack, often that's enough to calm the tantrum down. And so that's a great thing to do. If your kiddo is starting to get dysregulated, you can say, oh, I can see you're getting very dysregulated. Let's try a glass of water. Let's try a snack. What snack would you like? I have an apple and an orange. Which would you prefer? Giving them choices is a big, big, big deal, because when we have choices in our life, we feel like we have some control over our life. And so for the brain that is fearful, if it knows that it has some choice, it can calm down a whole lot. So by giving your kiddo choices, obviously not when they're in extreme fear state, but continuously giving your kid choices, and then when they're in a calmer state, being able to give them choices can really help keep the brain from going into fear mode and give them a sense of choice and control and power. Especially for kids, or, and I say kids, and again, this could be a kid who's 32, but for kids who don't have a lot of mobility and don't have the ability to do a lot physically, the more choices we can give them, the more in control they are going to feel, and like they have some independence. And so, don't just turn on TV for them. Ask, do you want to watch show A or do you want show B? And so giving them choice so that they do have some autonomy is amazing. And food, do you want to use the green pouch today, or do you want me to use the pink pouch today? So, giving giving them some choices about what is going on in their world can make a big difference for keeping fear at bay. And when they get offline and when they get dysregulated, we want to use eye contact. So again, eye contact can change what's happening in the brain and can bring that down into a better place. And so by just looking in their eyes and saying, let me see those eyes and what's going on. And then maybe at that point, you name it to tame it. That's another thing we do, is we name it to tame it. So we call out what we see happening in them. It looks like you're very frustrated, or it looks like you're really upset. And so by just naming what you see happening can do a lot to calm a child down, because they're going to feel seen and heard and known. And it's like, yes, somebody sees that I'm so frightened here. Maybe mom can take care of it, you know? And so name it to tame it is a great tool in that process of helping them get from fear to regulation, or from dysregulation to regulation. Don't forget to be playful. The same thing that happens, that helps to connect, also helps to bring us out of fear mode, because as I said before, fear and joy cannot coexist. And so if we're playful and we help them be playful, it can be a great way to help them get out of fear mode. And at our house, one of the things we do to be playful is we just start singing. And so like if I've said, you know, can you pick up your room? And then the tantrum starts, I might say, oh, we've got to pick up our room. And we just be silly. And then, you know, we all start laughing, and then it becomes this humorous thing. So be playful in however that looks. And as you could tell, you don't have to be able to sing on key. And in fact, it's more funny when you're off key like me. So our family loves that. And singing helps. And it helps me remember too, as the parent, oh, I don't need to take this to a level 10. I can keep this playful and fun. And we're probably all going to turn around really quickly by doing that. Another thing that you can do is we call it proprioception. And that is basically when we use our muscles to help us calm our body. And so it's just, if you think about pushing in any way or using muscle force. So one way is to chew gum. So if your kiddo is able, give your kid some gum. If you see them starting to get dysregulated, hey, let's grab a piece of gum, because that muscle movement can really help calm the central nervous system down. You can also have your kiddo just push their arms together if they're able. If they're not able to do that, maybe could they push their fingers? And if they can't do that, can they squeeze their eyelids? Or push against a wall? Or if your kid has more mobility, maybe they do, I don't think you can really see it, but you can see that I'm lifting up because I'm using my hands to push myself off the seat. And so having them do that can also help get that brain more regulated and get the body into a calm, steady state. And I want to throw in here too, when we're talking about regulating and dysregulating, I'm not saying we get rid of the feeling of frustration, or we get rid of the feeling of whatever quote unquote negative feeling is happening. Feelings are okay. And so it's okay that your kiddo is frustrated. It's just important that they don't lash out or hit or throw a tantrum when they are. And so these are things that we do to get the body to a regulated state, but it doesn't mean your kid's not going to feel frustrated. Because again, the frustrated feeling is okay. It's the, hitting mom or what have you, that's not okay. And so part of our work too is allowing our kiddos to feel things that aren't necessarily pleasant, like frustration or anger or fear. It's okay for us to feel that, but how do we move through it, and how do we get to a better place too? Okay, so that proprioceptive is just the pushing muscle movement that we can get creative with. Also, we can use touch to help calm the body down. So even just putting your hand on their arm, or in a loving touch. Always be careful that you don't like grip too hard because you're angry. But if you're able and in a calm place, if you can just put skin on skin for them for at least 10 seconds, that's going to release positive oxytocin in their body. And so they're going to have a natural drug release from having that 10-second of skin to skin touch, which is going to help calm their central nervous system down. And it also creates feelings of connection too. So when we touch skin to skin, it creates feelings of connection. It helps lessen fear and helps us feel better naturally with a natural drug release. And then I want to also remind you to breathe. So in that moment, if you've been practicing breathing, you can say, oh, let's take 3 slow, deep breaths. Let's just pause and do that. Right? And so you can remind them. And maybe they're like, no, I can breathe. That's okay. You just do the breathing. Say, okay, you don't have to. I'm just going to sit here and breathe next to you. And if your kid is failing, don't sit too close. You don't want to be in arm's reach, but sit far enough away or close enough that they can just see and hear you breathing. And so you can role model for them what it looks like to calm down. And again, those mirror neurons are so strong that they'll probably just start naturally breathing deeply just the way that you are. So don't forget your breath. It's one of the most important things that we can do to calm our bodies down. We're in a fear state or in a dysregulated state. And then the last thing I want to leave you with is what I call 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it's a way to help us be mindful. It's to help our brains stop being in a fearful place, but in a place of being present. And so you and your kiddo can do it together, but you can say, oh, let's look around for 5 things that we can see. And if your kiddo is able, then have them say the 5 things that they see. Oh, I see a lamp, I see the wall, I see a bed. Have them tell you. And if they are not able, then you say it. You say 5 things that they can see, so that when you're naming it, they can look in and see it. And then 4 things that you can touch and have them touch if they're able. If they're not, I mean, you can pick up their hand too and help them touch as needed. So 4 things you can touch, 3 things that you can hear. What do you hear in and around the room? 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And when we do that, when we go through that process and we say it out loud, again, we're getting our brain out of the reptilian place into the executive functioning place where we can think more rationally and we can make better choices and decisions, and we're in a regulated state. So that's a good one to practice as a grown-up too, when you feel your own self getting anxious or a little dysregulated. So those are my tips for y'all on how to kind of help get through disruption and dysregulation, ways for you to take care of yourself, to make sure that you are able to be in a place of calmness when your kiddo is getting disrupted, even if it's just a few seconds that you take for yourself every day, to just have your own moment of peace and calmness so that you can be calm for your kiddo. Taking care of yourself is so, so important. I know you have a big job on your hands in taking care of your kids, and you are no good to anybody if you are worn out and worn down. And so I just cannot say enough how much you need to take care of yourself as well. And as just a parting comment, the best regulator is another human. And so the best thing that you can do for your kid is for you to regulate your own self and regulate your own breathing and your own anxiousness, because that is the best thing that you can do to help your kiddos. You guys are doing a great job. Keep up the amazing work that you're doing as parents, and I hope you have a great day.